Thomas the Slav was a 9th-century Byzantine military commander, most notable for leading a wide-scale revolt in 821–23 against Emperor Michael II the Amorian, an army officer of Slavic origin from the Pontus region. Thomas rose to prominence, along with the future emperors Michael II and Leo V the Armenian, under the protection of General Bogdanas-R. After Bogdans's failed rebellion in 803, Thomas fell into obscurity until Leo V's rise to the throne, when Thomas was raised to a senior military command in Central Asia Minor. After the murder of Leo and usurpation of the throne by Michael the Amorian, Thomas revolted, claiming the throne for himself. Thomas quickly secured support from most of the themes and troops in Asia Minor, defeated Michael's initial counterattack and concluded an alliance with the Abbasid Caliphate. After winning over the maritime themes and their ships as well, he crossed with his army to Europe and laid siege to Constantinople. The imperial capital withstood Thomas's attacks by land and sea, while Michael II called for help from the Bulgarian ruler Omerta. Omerta attacked Thomas's army, but although repelled, the Bulgarians inflicted heavy casualties on Thomas's men, who broke and fled when Michael took to the field a few months later. Thomas and his supporters sought refuge in Arcadiopolis, where he was soon blockaded by Michael's troops. In the end, Thomas's supporters surrendered him in exchange for a pardon, and he was executed. Thomas's rebellion was one of the largest in the Byzantine Empire's history, but its precise circumstances are unclear due to competing historical narratives, which have come to include claims fabricated by Michael to blacken his opponent's name. Consequently, various motives and driving forces have been attributed to Thomas and his followers. As summarized by the Oxford Dictionary of Byzantium, Thomas's revolt has been variously attributed to a reaction against iconoclasm, a social revolution and popular uprising, a revolt by the empire's non-Greek ethnic groups, Thomas's personal ambitions, and his desire to avenge Leo V. Its effects on the military position of the empire, particularly vis-a-vis the Arabs, are also disputed. Early life and career. The 11th-century Theophanes Continuatus states that Thomas was descended from South Slavs resettled in Asia Minor by successive Byzantine emperors, while the 10th-century chronicler Genesius calls him Thomas from Lake Gauzaru, of Armenian race. Most modern scholars support his Slavic descent and believe his birthplace to have been near Gatsura in the Pontus, hence his epithet of the Slav, which has been applied to him only in modern times. Nothing is known about his family and early life, except that his parents were poor and that Thomas himself had received no education. Given that he was between 50 and 60 years old at the time of the rebellion, he was probably born around 760. Two different accounts of Thomas's life are recounted in both Genesius and Theophanes Continuatus. According to the first account, Thomas first appeared in 803 accompanying General Bogdanas-R, and pursued a military career until launching his revolt in late 820. In the second version, he came to Constantinople as a poor youth and entered the service of a man with the high court rank of patrikios. Then, discovered trying to commit adultery with his master's wife, Thomas fled to the Arabs in Syria, where he remained for 25 years. Pretending to be the murdered Emperor Constantine VI, he then led an Arab-sponsored invasion of Asia Minor, but was defeated and punished. Classical and Byzantine scholar J.B. Berry tried to reconcile the two narratives, placing Thomas's flight to the Abbasid Caliphate at around 788 and then having him return to Byzantine service before 803, while the Russian scholar Alexandar.R interpreted the sources as implying that Thomas fled to the Caliphate at Constantine VI's deposition in 797, and that his participation in Bogdans's revolt must be discounted entirely. The second version of Thomas's story is explicitly preferred by Genesius and Theophanes Continuatus. and is the only one recorded in 9th-century sources, namely the Chronicle of George the Monk and the Life of Saints David, Simeon, and George of Lesbos. Nevertheless, the French Byzantinus Paul Lemeller came to consider it an unreliable later tradition created by his rival Michael II to discredit Thomas, and rejected it altogether, preferring to rely on the first account alone. Most modern scholars follow him in this interpretation. The first tradition relates that Thomas served as a Spartharios to Bardanus Torkos, the monostrategos of the Eastern Themes, who in 803 rose in rebellion against Emperor Nicephorus I. Alongside Thomas were two other young Spartharioi in Badanz's retinue, who formed a fraternal association: Leo the Armenian, the future Leo V, and Michael the Amorian, the future Michael II. According to a later hagiographic tradition, before launching his revolt, Bardanus, in the company of his three young proteges, is said to have visited a monk near Philomelion who was reputed to foresee the future. The monk predicted what would indeed happen: that Bardanz's revolt would fail, that Leo and Michael would both become emperors, and that Thomas would be acclaimed emperor and killed. When Bardanus did in fact rise up, he failed to win any widespread support. Leo and Michael soon abandoned him and defected to the imperial camp and were rewarded with senior military posts. Thomas alone remained loyal to Bardanus until his surrender. In the aftermath of Bardanz's failure, Thomas disappears from the sources for 10 years. Berry suggests that he fled to the Arabs, a view accepted by a number of other scholars, such as Romilly James Heald Jenkins. The historian Warren Treadgold, however, argues that Thomas stayed in the empire and that may have even remained in active military service, and explains his obscurity by Thomas's association with Bardanus, which hampered his career. In July 813, Leo the Armenian became emperor and quickly rewarded his old companions, giving them command over elite military forces. Michael received the tagma of the excubators, and Thomas the torma of the foederati, stationed in the Anatolic theme.